Great. Good morning, everybody. Oh, that was pretty good. I thought I was going to have to do it twice. That's amazing. So we're really excited to be here. I'm really excited to be here. Thank you so much, Dr. Kim, for introducing us. My name is Margarita, and I'm here with Sadie Nash Leadership Project. And I'm really excited to be talking about Homeplaces with you all today because this conference in a lot of ways has felt like home, right? And I'm really inspired by all the work that you're doing. I feel like you're pushing us to think deeper, to go harder, to really fight, but also laugh and have lots of joy. And so before I start, I want to also thank Melissa Harris Perry. I want to thank Sarah for making sure we got here. We knew where we had to be, for taking care of all the logistics and all of the team at Anna Julia Cooper Center, as well as all of you. I want to actually start us off by doing an activity. And so don't worry, I won't make you run around. I won't make you stand up today just because it's a little bit earlier in the day. But I actually want us to do a little bit of a visioning activity. So if you feel comfortable, I want y'all to close your eyes or try to focus on a specific place in the room. And really get comfortable in your chair. Get to a place where you feel supported. I know sometimes we feel like we have to hold ourselves up and hold everybody else up, but try to really just let go a little bit. And now I want y'all to imagine a place where all that truly matters takes place. Imagine warmth and comfort of shelter. Imagine the feeding of our bodies, of our minds, the nurturing of our souls. Imagine that you're home. You feel like you've arrived. You feel safety. You feel healing. You feel community. What does that feel like? What are the smells that are coming to you? Where are you? Now, as you're ready, go ahead and open your eyes and come back to this. Now, if we had a little bit more time, I would have y'all actually share in these fabulous circular tables that we're at. But I know this is a lightning talk, and there's a lot of us actually here today. But I really want y'all to think about that home place, right? And for me, it took me a really, really long time to actually find a place where I felt like home. Even though I got here and I instantaneously really felt that. And at Sadie Nash, this is the kind of home places that we're creating for our young women, and a home place that we want to actually create and for other researchers, specifically young women of color researchers. We want to create that feeling of together, of for us, by us, that really is centering our experiences and is really research that we're going to use as a tool for social justice. So a little bit about Sadie Nash. Am I supposed to? Yeah. Yes, great. So a little bit about Sadie Nash. We're a young women's leadership organization in Newark, New Jersey, and in New York City. And we're really doing a lot of consciousness raising work, right? We're really learning from each other. We're doing activities kind of like the one that y'all just did. And we're really recognizing young women as leaders now that can really make a change in their communities and really fight against the oppression and injustice that a lot of y'all were talking about yesterday. And we're not necessarily organizers, we're not necessarily researchers, but now we're trying to embody all of those identities at once. We're definitely educators, and we're all learning from all the brilliance and the genius that we bring from each other, and really redefining what it means to be a leader, right? Um, and really going against oppression, really going against injustice, and really doing that in a sort of warm sense of loving sisterhood and support where we are carrying one another. Um, and we really want to invite sort of researchers to be a part of this family, and to help us in sort of creating a research hub where we're able to create this really powerful research. And so with that, I'm actually going to introduce my colleague, Bianca, who's going to talk a little bit of our first research partner, SUNY Downstate, and the work that they're doing and how we're going to support each other.
Thanks, Margarita. So as a graduate student, for the past couple of years, I've been involved in projects centering around empowering youth and providing mentorship that helps link young women and girls of color. Let's actually. Yes, providing mentorship that links young women and girls of color to opportunities that might not be accessible or perceived as accessible to them. And my colleague Shavaun and I have discussed how the issues that we face in society today, as you all know, very much parallel or mirror the issues faced, unfortunately, decades ago. And so, with that, it really drives us in the work that we do, and it motivates us in our fight. But to affect the change that we want to see, sometimes we do have to take that pause, and we have to step back and do some research and listen to young women and girls of color, and listen to them as they communicate to us what their concerns are, really before we take the next step. And so we've had the privilege at school, at SUNY Downstate Medical Center, School of Public Health, to work as research assistants with the wonderful Dr. LeConté Dill, if you're watching us, hey, who unfortunately wasn't able to make it today. But so some of the things that we have been working on with her have been around school push-out, transnational identities, Black Girl Magic, poetry as public health, and we've been honored to present some of our work during this conference circuit over the past couple of months. And so specifically, the research that we've been working on has been with an organization that we work with in Central Brooklyn called CAVI. It's the Kings Against Violence Initiative. And it provides tools for safe alternatives to interpersonal violence by empowering youth and helping them to help cultivate their untapped potential. And part of the organization involves CAVI programming that occurs in a high school that's right around the corner from our campus. And so with that program, there's also, so the weekly workshops involve a poetry workshop. And that's just how, for example, we did Poetry as a Scream, engaging urban Black girls in reading and writing poetry to reveal trauma. And so that's just a little bit about SUNY Downstate. And so not only are the voices being heard through the poetry during the workshop, but it's also serving as qualitative data. But there are limits to purely academic research, right? So often we're publishing articles as we do research on an important group that unfortunately remains kind of inaccessible to those that it's intended to help, right? So we don't often see young women and girls of color engaging or going to PubMed or going to within an academic journal to find what our findings are. And so that's one limitation. Another, at least for our institution at SUNY Downstate, there's a lack of understanding with our IRB in what qualitative research is and what social science research is. And so that can actually prevent us from adequate data collection and really seeing the whole picture and grasping what's at stake. So that's a little bit about our values, and you can see that they are aligned with Sadie, Nash. And we're hoping that this partnership will allow us to open a dialogue that continues to include voices of women and girls of color, not only as students and researchers, but also as community accountable scholars, so that it extends our collective and collaborative work beyond any limitations that we do face, because we too, as researchers, are really searching for this home place. And so Shavaun's about to discuss what it means to be a community accountable scholar.
Well said, Bianca. As Audre Lorde once said, she stated that if she did not break the limits and define herself on her own terms, she would be consumed. As researchers, we take the limits off through what Casings calls a community of practice. Much like a home place, we can redefine ourselves as scholars, be able to fully develop our scholarly identity. This means we can foster relationships, develop a sense of belonging, confidence, and the inquisitive spirit. This is how we make the transition from researcher to community accountable scholar. Gums shared that she, quote, found the key to a miraculous experience of community accountable scholarship was consistently being in touch with the deeper purpose of the intellectual work and remaining connected and accountable to the communities that I love. So what does this mean for the young women at Sadie Nash? Well, it means reclaiming scholar to coincide with the identity of leader, feminist, and activist.
I'm gonna finish up the how piece of what we're actually looking at Sadie Nash. And so for some of you who run nonprofits as practitioners, we talk a lot at Sadie Nash about the white gaze, about the male gaze when we're raising consciousness for young women, how to escape that. I think sometimes when we are practitioners, the thing that we get caught up in and that we don't realize is the funder's gaze, meaning that as running nonprofit organizations that are constantly looking for funding, we end up trying to show that we are doing the best. We are saving these young women, even if we don't believe that we want to be saviors. And the goal of setting up our own independent research hub is to say, what would it mean for us as practitioners to move beyond this funder's gaze, to say that we aren't trying to be accountable to funders to liberate young women. We are accountable to the young women themselves. So the first question is for us as practitioners, meaning practitioners in the nonprofit sector who do need money to run, but what does it mean to be accountable to the young women we serve rather than the funder? So this moving beyond the funder's gaze is one really important term that we want to talk about and be honest about, because I think in the same way that the male gaze or the white gaze occupies us and we don't always acknowledge us, I think the funder gaze hits us. The second term, and I really want to give a huge shout out to Alexis Pauline Gums who came up with this term of community accountable scholar. So we'll just have a moment because it's such a great term because it captures two different populations. We know that all of you, right, this room of researchers, that you went into this work because you cared about a community. And that in the same way that sometimes then you get caught up in trying to get tenure or publications and you forget who you're accountable to. So you end up being accountable to your tenure committee versus the community you love. We want to center this community to say, what would it mean if we offered you a space where you could actually be accountable to the reason that you entered the academy to begin with? So that is one. But then the second thing is for our young women. When we often talk about being scholars, it ends up in sort of the youth development world about getting into college, right? That's what it means to be a scholar, right? And we're saying, what does it mean to divorce it from an institution? What does it mean to say, I want to be a scholar because I want to study the experience of my people? And the important thing with what Margarita said in the beginning is to say that we are a youth development educational place means that we don't want to just do research for campaigns. It is important to explain all the struggles that young women of color go to, make sure you get the right quotes and the right stats. It is equally important to capture the joy and happiness and magic that is occurring. And often when nonprofits and researchers combine, it is to move the campaign forward. And what we want to move forward is capturing the multitudes that we know exist within our young women of color. And because we aren't at Sadie Nash linked to a specific campaign, except the campaign in general to center young women of color, we want to make sure that we operate on this luxury to be like, what are all these thousands of research questions that aren't just solving problems, but our young women are interested in? So what this actually, this how, right? We're figuring that we're still figuring this out, and that part of why we're here is to announce this and figure this out, is to say, obviously we're interested in how we can do our work better, right? If young women drop out of the program, what happens to them 4 years later, like on the basic thing, to be like program evaluation. But we also want to think about how we can respond to what's going on all over the country, right? Existing literature and trends. But then we have our young women in the program are called Nashers, to be like, what are your questions, right? And those questions could be for a young woman who starts defining as Afro-Latina, to be like, how did that happen and why did that happen, right? When did that consciousness occur? Not necessarily linked to a big campaign to challenge somebody, but an important question about consciousness and transformation. So what we're interested in is exploring all of these questions that our young women have about themselves, their communities. What's the difference in the programs for young women whose moms might be going to college at the same time that the young women are? When we say, you know, our funders are often interested in race and class, and that is a proxy for things. But we know that when you say low income and black, that within that there's 18,000 different categories, right? We know that. And what would it mean for us to ask those questions, to say, are there different outcomes between Africans, Caribbeans, African Americans? How do these young women work with these different identities? What's happening? Again, asking the questions because we're interested, not because some external force is interested. So the goal is to have graduate students, and I just want to give a shout out to these young women who presented, who are all young women of color, who came and spoke right before me, is to have a space where we welcome them to start their journey as scholars with us, again, and with our young women. And that we're not trying necessarily to publish huge things in journals, although that would be great, but to write short, accessible papers, because it's amazing to come here and hear all of the wisdom and brilliance here, but my regular life is running a nonprofit and paying the rent, right? And we don't necessarily get access to the literature. And I don't want to position ourselves as outsiders and critiquing the academy, but what I want to say is my dream is that we're writing these short research missives that are accessible to everyone and having breakfast briefings that we're inviting people to who are neither practitioner nor academic, but somebody who is committed to the liberation, right, of all young women of color, which is a lot of people. And so you're all invited. And the one thing I wanted to just say about Homeplace and where we got this exercise is, I mean, does anyone know where the term Homeplace comes from? We're gonna have an embarrassing moment right here. Does anyone? Bell Hooks. Just to give proper attribution. Bell Hooks talks about Homeplaces. And so she talks about this idea of it. We have all experienced it in moments, but what we want to do is to create this place that we already have for our young women at Sadie Nash, but what we want to say is what we know is possible is to create a home place filled with our young women, but also scholars who are committed, and that we are all accountable together. And this last sentence, which feels really important, the sweetness and the bitterness, so that we have the space to enjoy each other, talk about the struggles, but again, talk about the joy. And so we're excited to invite all of you, and we're excited to get more ideas on the how. Thank you.